In the vast expanse of the universe, where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across an endless velvet canvas, there existed a planet unlike any other. Xylora 7 was a world bathed in perpetual twilight, its skies painted with swirling purples and deep blues that seemed to pulse with life itself. The planet's surface was a breathtaking mosaic of crystalline forests and liquid metal rivers that shimmered under the dim light of its twin suns. Among these wonders stood the magnificent citadel of the Xylanth race, a structure that defied conventional understanding of architecture, appearing to grow organically from the living crystal formations beneath. At the heart of this alien civilization ruled Queen Lysara, a being whose very presence commanded both awe and reverence. Her towering form, gracefully adorned with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her emotions, moved through the crystalline halls with an elegance that belatedly reminded one of flowing water. The Xylanth were a proud and ancient species, their society built upon intricate bonds of family and community that transcended mere biology. Each member of their race carried within them the collective memory of their ancestors, a living tapestry of experiences and wisdom passed down through countless generations. The Xylanth had long been aware of other intelligent life scattered throughout the galaxy, but they maintained a careful distance, choosing to observe rather than interfere. Their technology, far advanced beyond anything humanity had yet achieved, allowed them to monitor the development of various species across the stars. Yet for all their sophistication, their greatest strength lay not in their machines or weapons, but in their profound connection to one another, a bond so powerful that it manifested physically through the luminous energy fields that surrounded each individual. Queen Lysara's chamber was perhaps the most beautiful space on Xylora 7, its walls alive with constantly shifting patterns that mirrored the queen's thoughts and emotions. Here she often sat, contemplating the future of her people while her young son, Prince Calith, played among the glowing crystal formations that grew naturally within the royal quarters. Calith, barely reaching his first century, still considered young among their long-lived species, possessed an insatiable curiosity about the universe beyond their protected world. His laughter echoed through the chambers like musical chimes, bringing joy to all who heard it. The queen watched her son with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Like all Xylanth children, Calith was developing his unique pattern of luminescence, but his glowed with an intensity rarely seen before. The elders whispered that this indicated extraordinary potential, though what form that might take remained unknown. As Lysara observed her child's eager exploration of their world, she couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility that came with raising not just her son, but the future leader of their people. In this moment of peace, with her son safe and thriving, she could never have imagined how quickly everything would change. The war began without warning, tearing through the fabric of Xylora 7's peaceful existence like a rogue comet through a star field. A coalition of warring factions from neighboring systems had targeted the Xylanth's advanced technology, believing it would give them dominance over their rivals. When the attack came, it wasn't merely a military assault. It was an invasion that sought to dismantle the very essence of Xylanth society. Queen Lysara's heart shattered as she watched her people, normally so united in their radiant glow, scatter like broken light across their beloved world. Prince Calith had been playing near the outer gardens when the first wave hit. The queen's desperate cry echoed through their psychic link just as the ground trembled beneath his feet. "Mother!" he called back, his voice carrying both fear and determination. Without hesitation, the young prince activated his personal shield, a gift from his coming-of-age ceremony, and ran toward the sounds of conflict. His luminescent patterns flared brighter than ever before, instinctively responding to the danger that threatened everything he held dear. Lysara's command center became a whirlwind of activity as reports flooded in from across the planet. Through tear-filled eyes, she coordinated defenses while searching for any sign of her son's distinctive energy signature. The enemy forces, equipped with technology specifically designed to disrupt Xylanth abilities, created chaos in their ranks. Communication channels flickered in and out, and the once unified psychic network of her people fractured under the assault. When news reached her that a group of young warriors, including Calith, had joined the front lines near the western crystalline forest, hope surged briefly in her chest. Her son was brave, yes, but still so young. She sent elite guards to retrieve him, only to learn that the entire sector had fallen under heavy bombardment. The last transmission from Calith's position showed his bright pattern fading amidst the chaos, his voice calling out, "For Xylora 7, before static claimed the channel. Time lost all meaning as Lysara waited for confirmation, each passing moment stretching into eternity. Hours later, when search teams finally reached the devastated area, they found no trace of the prince. The crystalline trees that should have preserved his energy signature were reduced to dust, their memories erased by the ferocity of the battle. The council members approached her throne, their own patterns dimmed with grief, bearing the worst possible news. Prince Caliph was presumed lost, his brilliant light extinguished in the defense of their home. The queen's anguish manifested physically as her bioluminescence pulsed erratically, sending waves of emotional distress throughout the surviving population. For days she remained in her chamber, unable to face her people or the emptiness left by her son's absence. The war continued to rage around her, but the loss of Caliph transformed every strategic decision, every order given, into a hollow echo of proper leadership. The brightest star in her life had been snuffed out, leaving behind only the cold vacuum of despair. On the human colony world of Epsilon 5, Captain Marcus Hale led his reconnaissance team through the dense foliage of an uncharted region. The war between the galactic powers had spread to this remote sector, turning even the most isolated planets into battlegrounds. As a veteran soldier with 15 years of service, Marcus had witnessed countless horrors, but nothing could have prepared him for what he discovered in a hidden valley that morning. The air shimmered strangely ahead, creating a mirage-like effect that initially made Marcus think his fatigue was playing tricks on his eyes. But as they moved closer, the distortion resolved into something extraordinary. A wounded Xylanth warrior, his luminous patterns flickering weakly against the dark background of twisted vegetation. What caught Marcus's attention immediately was the warrior's size. Much smaller than any Xylanth combatant he'd encountered before. The being's energy signature pulsed irregularly, and his attempts to maintain an invisible state kept failing, revealing glimpses of delicate, almost childlike features beneath the characteristic Xylanth armor. "Medic!" Marcus barked, dropping to one knee beside the injured alien. The creature's golden eyes widened in alarm, attempting to scramble away despite his injuries. "Easy now," Marcus said softly, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. "We're not going to hurt you." The Xylantha's bioluminescent patterns flashed in panic, communicating either pain or fear, possibly both. Marcus noted the subtle differences in the patterns compared to adult Xylanth warriors. Softer transitions between colors, more fluid movements that reminded him of sunlight dancing on water. As the medic worked to stabilize the alien, Marcus examined the surrounding area. The evidence of a recent skirmish was undeniable. Scorched earth, discarded weapons, and traces of Xylanth technology scattered about. But what truly puzzled him were the defensive positions that suggested someone had been protecting this particular spot. He found makeshift barriers constructed from local materials, clearly designed to shield whoever had been here from multiple angles of attack. The wounded Xylantha's condition worsened rapidly, his breathing becoming labored as his energy patterns grew increasingly erratic. Marcus noticed how the creature clutched at a pendant hanging from his neck, a simple crystal formation that pulsed faintly with a unique frequency. Something about the way he guarded it spoke of deep significance. Despite his injuries, the alien's eyes remained alert, watching Marcus with an intelligence that seemed far beyond his apparent youth. A sudden realization struck Marcus like a physical blow. The reports from Xylora 7 had mentioned the missing prince, describing his distinctive energy patterns and noting his exceptional brightness. The descriptions matched perfectly with what he saw before him. Could this be the supposedly lost Prince Caliph? The thought sent a chill down his spine as he contemplated the implications. If this was indeed the Xylanth royal heir, then everything they thought they knew about the war might be wrong. "Get him stabilized," Marcus ordered again, his voice firm despite the turmoil in his mind. "We're taking him back to base camp." As he helped lift the injured alien onto a stretcher, Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This discovery could change the course of the entire conflict, potentially ending the senseless bloodshed that had already claimed too many lives. But more importantly, he realized, it could mean reuniting a grieving mother with her lost child, a universal truth that transcended species and wars. Back at the human encampment, Captain Hale faced the daunting task of caring for his otherworldly patient while grappling with the monumental implications of his discovery. The medical team worked tirelessly to understand the Xylanth physiology, finding similarities to human nervous systems but encountering numerous baffling elements. Prince Calipha's bioluminescent patterns responded dramatically to different stimuli, sometimes flaring brightly in apparent distress, other times dimming to nearly imperceptible levels during periods of rest. Marcus spent hours observing these changes, gradually learning to interpret the basic meanings behind the shifting colors and intensities. Communication proved equally challenging and fascinating. Through trial and error, Marcus discovered that speaking slowly while projecting clear mental images helped bridge their language gap. Caliph, despite his weakened state, demonstrated remarkable intelligence, often responding with complex patterns that seemed to convey detailed information. The prince's pendant, which Marcus had initially dismissed as a simple ornament, proved to be a sophisticated communication device capable of transmitting messages across vast distances. However, damage sustained during the battle had rendered it mostly inoperable, explaining why Queen Lysara hadn't detected her son's survival. The bond that developed between human and alien surprised everyone in the camp. Soldiers who had previously viewed Xylants as faceless enemies found themselves drawn to the young prince's gentle nature and obvious courage. Caliph, in turn, showed genuine interest in human customs and technology, his natural curiosity overcoming his initial fear. Meals became shared experiences of cultural exchange, with Marcus teaching Caliph about Earth traditions while learning about Xylant society in return. Yet beneath these moments of connection lay a growing tension. Military command questioned the wisdom of sheltering an enemy royal, regardless of his age or circumstances. Intelligence officers pressured Marcus for information about Xylant defenses, seeing an opportunity to exploit their discovery. The captain found himself walking a tightrope between protecting his charge and maintaining his duty to his own people. Night after night, he wrestled with the moral implications of using Caliph as leverage in negotiations or returning him to Xylora, 7, potentially altering the balance of power in the ongoing conflict. Caliph's health improved steadily, but his emotional state remained fragile. The trauma of battle combined with months of separation from his mother manifested in unpredictable ways. Some nights, Marcus would find the prince standing alone in the medical bay, staring at the stars through the observation window, his patterns flickering with longing. Other times, Caliph would become agitated, his energy fields pulsing erratically as if fighting off unseen threats. During these episodes, Marcus learned that simply being present, offering a steady human presence, helped calm the young prince more effectively than any medication. The situation reached a critical point when Caliph attempted to repair his damaged pendant using tools from the human engineering department. Marcus discovered him late one evening, working feverishly to restore the device's functionality. The desperation in the prince's eyes spoke volumes about his need to reconnect with his mother. It was in this moment that Marcus fully grasped the depth of the bond between parent and child, a connection that transcended species and warfare. Standing there, watching the determined young alien struggle with wires and crystals, Marcus realized that some truths were universal. The ache of separation, the yearning for reunion, and the unconditional love of a mother for her child. As weeks turned into months, Captain Hale's resolve hardened into an unshakable determination. The young Xylant prince had become more than just a political asset or a symbol of hope for ending the war. He had become family. Marcus watched Caliph grow stronger each day, his bioluminescent patterns gaining complexity and brilliance, until they rivaled those described in reports about Queen Lysara herself. The prince's recovery wasn't merely physical. His spirit had mended through the bonds formed with his human caretakers, particularly Marcus, who had taken on a protective role that mirrored parental devotion. News of Caliph's survival reached military command, sparking debates that rippled through the chain of command. Some argued for immediate disclosure to Xylora, 7, seeing it as a diplomatic opportunity to end hostilities. Others advocated using the prince as leverage in peace negotiations, viewing his return as a bargaining chip too valuable to surrender freely. Marcus found himself caught in this political crossfire, defending his decision to nurture the young prince while preparing for the inevitable moment when he must choose between military duty and moral obligation. The human soldiers stationed at the base had undergone a transformation alongside their alien guest. Where once they had trained to fight Xylant forces, they now volunteered extra hours to assist with Caliph's care and education. Engineers collaborated with the prince to repair his communication pendant, sharing technological knowledge while learning about Xylant advancements. Medical staff documented their findings about Xylant physiology, creating a database that would revolutionize interspecies medicine. Even the most hardened veterans found themselves softening in Caliph's presence, their preconceptions about the enemy dissolving in the face of his genuine warmth and intelligence. Queen Lysara, meanwhile, continued her reign burdened by grief that had settled into a constant ache. Though she maintained her duties with regal dignity, those closest to her noticed how her luminescent patterns had dimmed permanently, lacking the vibrant intensity that once defined her presence. The council members reported whispers among the population, questioning whether their queen's sorrow compromised her ability to lead effectively. Yet Lysara pressed on, driven by responsibility to her people and the hope that somehow, somewhere, her son might still be alive. The universe seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when these parallel stories would converge. Marcus knew time was running out. Kalitha's restored pendant had begun picking up faint signals from Xylora, 7, indicating that the queen's search for her son had never ceased. Each successful transmission brought them closer to the decision point. Would they reveal Kalitha's existence to his mother, potentially ending the war but risking political fallout, or would they attempt to use this knowledge to force peace terms? The weight of this choice pressed heavily on Marcus's shoulders as he watched Kalith practicing his restored abilities, the prince's patterns dancing with renewed vitality. In the privacy of his quarters, Marcus studied the data streaming from Kalitha's repaired pendant. The signals confirmed what he'd suspected. Queen Lysara had established a network of listening posts throughout the contested regions, hoping against hope to detect her son's unique energy signature. What the reports didn't mention was how each failed search affected the queen, how her patterns dimmed further with each disappointment. Marcus understood this intimately, having witnessed similar devastation in human families torn apart by war. The ethical dilemma tore at him. Military protocol demanded he report Kalitha's status immediately, allowing strategic minds to decide the best course of action. Yet every fiber of his being rebelled against treating the young prince as merely another asset in their arsenal. The young man, had shown courage beyond his years, compassion that bridged species, and a wisdom that often left Marcus feeling humbled. To hand him over to politicians and generals who saw only tactical advantages would betray everything Marcus had come to believe about the nature of conflict and resolution. His internal struggle intensified when Kalith began experiencing vivid dreams of his mother. The prince would wake in the middle of the night, his patterns blazing with such intensity that they illuminated the entire medical bay. Marcus would find him sitting upright, tears, remarkably similar to human tears, tracing paths through his luminescent markings. During these moments, Kalith would reach out telepathically, not with words but with raw emotion that Marcus could feel even through their species barrier. Love, longing, and an overwhelming need for reunion. Military command's patience wore thin. Orders arrived demanding immediate transfer of the prince to Central Command for strategic evaluation. Marcus stalled, citing medical concerns and the need for further rehabilitation. He knew he couldn't delay forever. Eventually, someone would arrive to enforce the transfer. The clock ticked relentlessly forward, each second bringing them closer to a confrontation Marcus dreaded. Yet how could he explain to his superiors that some connections transcended military necessity? That the bond between a mother and child, regardless of species, represented something sacred that shouldn't be weaponized? Late one evening, as Marcus reviewed the latest intelligence reports, he noticed something peculiar in the data from Xylora, 7. Queen Lysara's patterns, which had grown consistently dimmer over the months, had begun to shift subtly. The changes were minute, almost imperceptible, but to someone who had spent countless hours studying Kalitha's energies, they spoke volumes. It was as if the queen's subconscious had detected something, perhaps the faint echoes of her son's restored communications, or maybe just the persistent hope that refused to die. This revelation added urgency to Marcus's predicament. Time wasn't just running out for his position. It was running out for two hearts separated by war and misunderstanding, each beating in lonely anticipation of reunion. Marcus's decision crystallized during a routine patrol near the edge of the secured zone. As his unit moved through the dense undergrowth, he caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. Fresh tracks leading toward their base camp. Not just any tracks, but those of elite Xylanth warriors, their distinctive energy signatures leaving faint traces in the environment. Someone on Xylora, 7 had detected Kalitha's restored communications, and they were closing in fast. The realization hit him with the force of a hammer strike. The choice he'd been agonizing over was about to be made for him. Returning to base at double time, Marcus found Kalith already aware of the approaching danger. The prince's patterns pulsed with urgent intensity, his movements displaying a grace and purpose that spoke of his royal heritage. "They come for me," Kalith communicated, his mental voice stronger than Marcus had ever experienced. "My mother's guard. They have found my signal." The human soldiers gathered around, their faces reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. These men and women, who had once trained to fight Xylanth forces, now stood ready to defend one of their own, regardless of species. The base's perimeter alarms triggered just as Marcus finished coordinating their defensive positions. Through the security monitors, they watched as shadows moved through the forest, their forms occasionally illuminated by bursts of bioluminescent energy. The Xylanth warriors advanced methodically, their patterns broadcasting a clear message: surrender the prince or face annihilation. Marcus knew this wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a test of loyalty, a moment that would define relationships between their species for generations to come. Inside the medical bay, Caliph stood tall, his pendant glowing steadily as he established a direct link with his approaching people. Marcus watched as the prince's patterns shifted through complex sequences, communicating far more than simple words could express. The human soldiers, though armed and ready, maintained their positions with restraint, their training battling against their newfound respect for the young alien prince. Tension crackled through the air like static electricity as both sides prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Then, through the secure channel of Calipha's pendant, a new presence emerged, one that made both human and Xylanth warriors freeze in their tracks. Queen Lysara's consciousness touched theirs, her powerful energy signature flooding the communication network. Marcus felt it like a physical presence, a force of nature that commanded attention and respect. Through Calipha's translation, her voice, both literal and metaphorical, resonated through the gathering storm. "My child, my warriors, humans who have sheltered my son, cease your preparations for conflict. Let us speak of reunions, not battles." The atmosphere shifted palpably as soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons, caught between duty and the universal understanding of a mother's love for her child. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between Caliph and the approaching Xylanth forces, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. The moment stretched taut, filled with possibilities that could reshape the course of the war and relations between their peoples. Everyone present understood that the next actions would determine whether this encounter ended in violence or marked the beginning of true understanding between species. The standoff held its breath as Queen Lysara's presence continued to radiate through the communication link. Marcus stood firm, his heart pounding but his resolve unshaken. Slowly, he turned to Caliph and placed a reassuring hand on the young prince's shoulder. "Your mother is here for you," he said softly, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "It's time." Calipha's bioluminescent patterns flared with emotion, joy, fear, anticipation, all swirling together in a mesmerizing display. The prince nodded, stepping forward alongside Marcus. Together they moved toward the edge of the base camp where the Xylanth warriors had gathered, their glowing forms shimmering like living stars against the dark forest backdrop. Queen Lysara herself emerged from the shadows, her towering figure bathed in an ethereal glow that seemed to pulse with every beat of her heart. Her eyes locked onto Caliph, and for a fleeting second, the entire battlefield froze. Then, without hesitation, she rushed forward, her regal composure crumbling under the sheer force of maternal love. Caliph ran to meet her, his smaller form colliding with hers in an embrace so powerful it seemed to light up the entire valley. Marcus stepped back, giving them space as mother and son reunited. Tears streamed down his face, not just human tears, but something deeper, primal, and he realized others around him were similarly affected. Human soldiers wiped at their eyes while Xylanth warriors dimmed their luminescence out of respect for the private moment unfolding before them. When the initial wave of emotion subsided, Queen Lysara turned her attention to Marcus. She approached him slowly, her patterns shifting into intricate sequences that conveyed gratitude, admiration, and something akin to awe. Through Calipha's translation pendant, her voice resonated clearly. "You have returned my child to me when all hope seemed lost. For this, I owe you more than words can express." Marcus bowed his head humbly. "I didn't do it alone," he replied. "Many of us came to see Caliph not as an enemy or a symbol, but as someone who needed protection, a child who deserved to be reunited with his mother." The queen's gaze swept over the assembled humans, lingering on each soldier who had cared for her son during his recovery. Her patterns softened, signaling understanding and acceptance. Turning back to Marcus, she extended a hand, not in dominance, but in partnership. "Let this act of compassion guide our peoples forward," she declared. "No longer shall we fight one another. Let today mark the beginning of peace between humans and Xylanth." A murmur rippled through both groups, human and alien alike, as they absorbed the magnitude of her words. Marcus felt a surge of relief wash over him, knowing that his decision to protect Caliph had led to this pivotal moment. He nodded firmly, taking the Queen's hand in agreement. "We're ready to build that future together," he said, his voice carrying across the clearing. Over the following days, negotiations transformed from tense strategic discussions into collaborative efforts aimed at healing the wounds of war. Queen Lysara invited representatives from both sides to Xylora 7, where she hosted a grand assembly beneath the crystalline trees of her citadel. Humans marveled at the beauty of the alien world, while Xylanth citizens welcomed their former adversaries with cautious curiosity. Shared meals, cultural exchanges, and joint technological projects began bridging the gap between species, fostering mutual understanding and trust. Calith played a central role in these developments, serving as a living testament to the possibility of unity. His bond with Marcus remained strong, and the two often worked side by side, translating ideas and mediating conversations. The prince's natural charisma and wisdom inspired hope in everyone he encountered, proving that even those born into conflict could become ambassadors of peace. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon of Xylora 7, casting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Marcus found himself standing beside Calith on a balcony overlooking the royal gardens. The prince's patterns glowed softly, reflecting contentment and purpose. "Thank you," Calith said, his mental voice tinged with warmth. "For everything." Marcus smiled, clapping a hand on the younger being's shoulder. "You don't need to thank me. You've already given us so much, a reason to stop fighting, a chance to start over. That's worth more than any medal or recognition." In the distance, Queen Lysara watched the pair with pride swelling in her chest. Her son had grown stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of his journey. And though parting ways with Marcus would be bittersweet, she knew their bond transcended physical separation. It was a connection forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by shared sacrifice, and strengthened by unconditional love. As weeks turned into months, the alliance between humans and Xylanth flourished. Trade routes opened, scientific collaborations yielded groundbreaking discoveries, and stories of Calith's rescue spread far beyond Xylora 7, inspiring other worlds caught in similar conflicts to seek peaceful resolutions. The once broken tapestry of galactic relations began to mend, stitch by careful stitch. On Earth, Marcus Hale became a legend, not for his military victories, but for his courage to follow his conscience. He retired from active duty, dedicating his life to fostering interstellar diplomacy. Whenever asked about his decision to protect Calith, he would simply say, "Sometimes, doing what's right means choosing love over strategy. And in the end, that choice changes everything." Years later, when Calith ascended to the throne of Xylora 7, Marcus stood among the honored guests at the coronation ceremony. As the new king delivered his inaugural address, his radiant patterns illuminated the hall with a brilliance that mirrored his mother's. His first decree? To establish a permanent embassy for humanity on Xylora 7, a testament to the enduring friendship sparked by one human soldier's act of kindness.